Hello, my name is Carl Cook, and I'm President and Chief Technical Officer of Biocomp Systems. And I want to give you a little bit of a tour of Dakota 3. For people who have a Biocomp profit and patterns, most of this will look familiar. And so I'll kind of gloss over the common areas and cover things that are specific to Dakota, which is a walk forward swarm algorithm adaptation process of scripted trading systems. And this is just a high level introduction overview. So I've started Dakota and have brought it up, and the first thing that happens is a default swarm window appears. And we've got a variety of tabs across this child window, and they're basically in order of the activities that you go through, the process that you go through. And first you get data, and then you can set various things related to how equity is calculated. And then you can create indicators and then feed those to swarming, adapting trading systems. And then you can see how those parameters of those trading systems are moving about in space. And then you can take a look at equity performance of the results of that and see a trading report. And then you can save the system away and reopen it the next day or whenever to continue on the adaptation process and to receive signals in the user interface. And this is basically a signal generator. This is not like TradeStation or Amy Broker, which has money management and all sorts of different kinds of things. You cannot execute trades with this. All it is trying to come up with a signal to buy or sell. And what I'm going to show you have no thinking about any kind of performance. This is not to show how good this product is. This is to show the mechanics of the process. And so the results, in fact, I'm going to do it such that the results stink. And just to keep people from thinking that this is some sort of demonstration of how great a trading tool this is. So on the data tab, like I say, profit patterns people, they're already familiar with this. You have a list of securities and you can import them from Metastock or text files at this time. Behind the scenes, this runs on the Intellect 3 architecture, which also has access to a large variety of different kinds of data sources. These are just the two that we've turned on at the moment. You got to leave some room for future features. So I've already mapped in data that comes from Pinnacle Data, which is probably the best futures data known to at least a lot of our users, and they've tried a lot, and they found the Pinnacle's good, and it has reverse adjusted and three different ways to adjust data. You can have holidays or not holidays. You can have all sorts of things in there, and it's from Pinnacle Data. So to add a security to the list that you're going to use, you just double click it, and you can import between particular dates. And when I double clicked Coco, it put it into a list of security data to use and automatically imported the data. And so now I have 822 rows of data with 6 columns. Well, 6 columns? Well, there's only one here. Well, let's go over to the indicators tab for the moment, and we see that we have date, open, high, low, close, and volume. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns. And okay, so that's how you get data in. Can you do more than one? Yeah, you can double click and bring over data as many in different cross market, intermarket, whatever. futures, indexes, your own indicators. The only rule on text files is that the first row should have a header. So it should be labeled like date time for the date time stamp, preferably in the first column. And then there's ways to map in text files to tell which column's what. But the easiest way is just to have date time in the first column and then open, high, low, close. And if you don't have open, high, low, close, it can be just date time and close. And anyway, you can bring it in and between dates. And the ending date defaults to the current date. And the next tab is familiar with also to profit and patterns users, is that you have an equity engine. That's our word for how is equity calculated. And there's a couple of default ones here. It says C# because that's what they're written in. They're add-ins. And so we have standard equity and direction correct. And each one of those has a bit of a description. I can widen this up a bit more. And you can set things like, and these guys are movable. You can set things like, they may have parameters associated with the equity calculation, like do I use slippage and commission? Is it a percent of the trade? Is there a particular value per point? Account size that you start with? Those kinds of things. And then you can also say that you want to trade long or short or both. And you can trade on the open or the close. And you can project the signal into the future by so many bars. We also have stops over here. There's one default stop. You just double click it and it'll put it into the stops in use. Most of our customers find that in a signal generator, stops hurt. And therefore they build their systems without stops. Oh, I know some of you are listening and going like, oh, you have to have stops. Okay, that's over in the money management part of it. So the signals out of here you might take over to TradeStation or AMI Broker, and then you might apply stops and money management and those types of things. This is just a simulation, and most of our customers learned not to use them. The next step is indicator building, and you can create static indicators. These do not adapt. These are like pre-processing before you send it to the swarm. And so you can say, okay, I want to select a variable, and you have this long laundry list of all sorts of different kinds of data processing that you can apply to your price to create indicators. So you can take a look at the change. If I click on change once, then there's a parameter in here, change of how many periods. So that's like, in some cases, some people call that momentum, like a 10-period momentum. Well, momentum really is just change, and over a different period. So you can have let's say a 1-period change or a 10-period change, and you can set that parameter. You select the variable and you double click this guy, and you'll notice that he copies it down to the bottom and then applies the change. And over here is a list of applied indicators, copy and change. Oh, and here's change 10. And you can, after the fact, change the parameter of your math operations, and it'll go back and apply it, automatically update it. So this is like change 10, so I can say change 5, and bam, now I got to change 5. And the reason that it copied it first, because date, open, high, low, close are protected, because the equity engine may be expecting those so that it can calculate, say, things related to the open or the close or the high and the low. Maybe the equity engine or the trading system is looking for maximum excursions and those kinds of things. So those variables are kept secure, so that they're available in their raw form of price. And in volume, I can double click on change and get a change in volume. I can click on any variable and I can look at a trend plot either on a time basis. So you can see like these are probably weekends where there's a little bit of a stretch in there, or I can look on a row basis because the weekends are not included in the data. I can look at a histogram of it, If I have two variables, I can look at a scatter plot. Right now I only have one variable in here. And I can look at a scatter plot on equal axis values or natural axis values. I can refresh and reverse the plot. I can toggle crosshairs and look at each one of these and say, okay, this is bin number whatever, and it ranges from this value to that value, and I have a count of so many. And in that bin, I can also, if I have a trend plot, I can turn on and off the labels. I can save this graphic to disk, or I can copy it onto the clipboard and paste it into something else, like I'm sending an email to my spouse showing them how much money I'm making or something. And if I grab two of those, then now I've got both of those plotted on here, and now I can actually do a scatter plot, which looks like a shotgun blast in this case, which suggests that volume and the change in volume and a change in close price are not particularly correlated. And anyway, so that's an introduction to a little chart goodie. If I want to take a back up in the transforms, I can hit the undo button. This red X is undo all. It just wipes out all the applied functions and you're back to your raw data again. And I also can export the data to disk. So if you do all sorts of computational work in here and you want to dump it to disk and use it in Excel or put it into some other package, you can just export it. Okay, now we get over to the Swarm tab. Oh, it looks rather dull and boring, doesn't it? Yes, it does. If I click on a swarm contains a pool of bots. A bot contains different sets of values of parameters of a trading system. So if a trading system is using like a moving average crossover, it might have the long period and the short period of the moving average. And so each one of the bots in the swarm will contain its values of those two periods of the moving average. And then equity performance is calculated for each bot. A bot actually creates its own signal model inside and retains that information. And then over time, as it's walking forward, perhaps the bots can move towards other bots who are performing better, and therefore the whole pool of swarm of bots are moving around chasing equity performance. And the theory behind that is, since the markets are non-stationary, they're constantly changing, then your trading system parameters are also changing and adapting along with the markets. Now, you can have up to, right now we put a limit of up to 100 bots in a swarm. You can put in, 15 or 20 or whatever. Now, a swarm has a variety of add-in functions, which there'll be other videos to show how you write these. One of them is called an initializer. And an initializer says, when you hit the go button, where should I put those parameters initially? And you could do things like randomly or equi-distributed. The initializer itself may have various parameters. This is a made-up one just for fun as a demonstration. Storfel factor. And it can have a minimum, a maximum, and a value. So that might be something like a degree of randomness or something. So that's just an example. The equi-distributed one has the number of steps that if I'm going to spread my trading system moving average between 3 and 10, that how many steps in between there do I want to equi-distribute those parameter values? Okay, so there's an initialization function, then there's an adapter function. As data is being processed bar by bar through these swarms of bots, they need to adapt and move their parameters. How do they do that? Well, that's an add-in that says in this case, go towards the best, or don't move at all. That has a distinct advantage that will show up in other videos. Next is, how good are those parameters for that particular bot? And so there is a quick calculation of bot performance. And this one is direction correct over the entire history, or no, for the current bar. And we'll have other ones that will have direction correct over an adaptation period. So a certain look back period, because you just want the recent performance. You don't want the performance since 1968. And there's an adaptation, there's a bot performance calculation. It's a very quick calculation. There's no trading statistics. There's no trading report. There's no nothing. There's just calculates a number of how good that bot's parameters are in terms of equity performance. Now, mover actually will move a bot from one swarm to another. And that's because a swarm can have subswarms. And so perhaps this swarm would like to move bots up from subswarms or move them back down to subswarms, depending on whatever criteria the add-in writer wants to put in there. So in this case, there's no moves. But then there's also other ones that I will show that will have where you can move up top performers from a subswarm up into the main swarm. The next is your trading system. That's called a signal generator. It takes the bot parameters and calculates whether or not the bot should be going long or short. And so that is actually the parameterized trading system. And right now we just have a random signal generator with some examples of parameters for that trading system, which we will see in a moment over as it's adapting. The next is, how do I take the signals of each bot and merge them together and bring them up to the swarm level and then up to the trading system, the application level for this trading system, which will then get put through this equity engine to be calculated and turned into a signal which goes into the price signal equity charts in the trade report. So this model merger is an algorithm that combines the signals of the bots and so that they're actually used for trading, because every bot has its own set of signals. And then the swarm itself may have a performance metric for all the combined bots. So you have a swarm with bots. Each bot has a trading performance, and then those are merged together into a common signal for the swarm, which then has a trading performance, which then may be merged upwards to the application level to be used as a signal for trading. So there's quite a few add-ins here that will initialize, adapt, evaluate performance of individual bots, move bots around, create a trading signal, merge those signals together, and then calculate performance at a swarm level before finally giving it back to the application to calculate the final signal. Now, one of the cool tricks about this is I can click this plus button and I can create a subswarm, or I can create a couple of subswarms, and I could make this guy equidistributed and not adapting. And that means that this swarm down here is like a sentinel swarm. And it has bots spread across space, and they're not moving, and their calculations are being made, and it becomes obvious which ones are more profitable at the moment. And that will give possibly clues to the higher level swarm that the bots really should be over in this direction. That maybe the swarm has all flocked to one side of the parameter space, but the sentinel bots are going like, no, over here. Over here is equity, so move over here. All right. And then I can also remove these. All right. So that's the introduction to that guy. If I click the go button, it says there's not enough bots in my equi distributed initializer because it takes a certain amount. So I'm going to go back to random here and push the go button. Now down here you'll see that it's processing, and this is the swarm of bots flocking around in uber high speed because this is relatively fast processing, and this is where the bots think they ought to be in order to create a positive equity for the system. People that have Dakota 1 and 2 are familiar with this chart. And over here, like I said, this is not intended at all to be good performing. Over here is the price, the signal that comes out. Why isn't it good performing? Well, the signal generator is a random number. So here's the price, here's the signal, and here's the equity curve and various trading statistics and an indication of whether the next move is to be long or short. Here's a trading report that and people with profit and patterns and Dakota are familiar with. Here's a trading report that shows various statistics and the trades that were executed. So that's a brief introduction, and I'll come back later with some more details and how to set this up to do various things, and also how to write these add-ins that are in this list using you can use Visual Studio Express, which is free from Microsoft, but you do need to be either a VB, a C#, or one of the other .NET language programmer to be able to write your trading systems. And you'll find that is we've tried to make that experience a little bit easier by you just inheriting objects, and you override certain functions and put in your code and compile it, and then we have a means by which you can import these add-ins easily just by pushing a plus button, or to bounce them back out again by selecting whichever one you want and then hitting the remove library button. So anyway, that was a quick introduction for people who generally have patterns, profit, and the older version of Dakota, and this is basically a prototype that has not been distributed off of our premises yet, but it gives you an idea of how it works and what things are add-ins. And so stay tuned for more videos to come, and I appreciate your time very much. Thank you, and have a great day.